STMK Radio 100. You're listening to Stop the Madness, Keep It 100 with your host, Sean L., Let, and Tone the Stone on STMK Radio 100. 100.
Yes, this is a PSA, a public street announcement. You are now listening to a Kickback production. Light up your L's, lean back, and listen.
I had a chance to talk to President-elect Trump last night, about 3:30 in the morning, I think it was, to congratulate him on winning the election. And I had a chance to invite him to come to the White House tomorrow to talk about making sure that there is a successful transition between our presidencies. A lot of our fellow Americans are exultant today. A lot of Americans are less so. But that's the nature of campaigns. That's the nature of democracy. It is hard, and sometimes contentious and noisy. And it's not always inspiring. Sometimes you lose an argument. Sometimes you lose an election. You know, the path that this country's taken has never been a straight line. We zig and zag, and sometimes we move in ways that some people think is forward and others think is moving back. And that's okay. I've lost elections before. Joe hasn't, but you know. So I've been sort of sharing.
Remember, you beat me badly.
That's the way politics works sometimes. We try really hard to persuade people that we're right. And then people vote. And then if we lose, we learn from our mistakes, we do some reflection, we lick our wounds, we brush ourselves off, we get back in the arena. We go at it. We try even harder the next time. The point, though, is that we all go forward with a presumption of good faith in our fellow citizens. Because that presumption of good faith is essential to a vibrant and functioning democracy. That's how this country has moved forward for 240 years. That's how we've pushed boundaries and promoted freedom around the world. That's how we've expanded the rights of our founding to reach all of our citizens. It's how we have come this far. And that's why I'm confident that this incredible journey that we're on as Americans will go on. And I'm looking forward to doing everything that I can to make sure that the next president is successful in that. I've said before, I think of this job as being a relay runner. You take the baton, you run your best race, and hopefully by the time you hand it off, you're a little further ahead. You've made a little progress. And I can say that we've done that, and I want to make sure that handoff is well executed, because ultimately we're all on the same team. All right. Thank you very much, everybody.
This past July, Donald Trump accepted the Republican nomination.
Humbly and gratefully.
stand up to bigotry. No compromises ever on this one. Bigotry in all its forms. We will fight back against attacks on Latinos, on African Americans, on women, on Muslims, on immigrants, on disabled Americans, on everyone. Whether Donald Trump sits in a glass tower or sits in the White House, we will not give an inch on this. Not now, not ever.
I'm scared. I really don't know what to think because I don't know when I'm gonna see my parents again. I just hope that Donald Trump helps us citizens.
Diversity is what makes us, is who we are. So I just feel like he's gonna ruin that.
We want things to be, white male, rich guy, nation, and I feel really vulnerable. I'm not a white guy, and I'm not rich.
To wake up and see that bigotry and oppression and misogyny and racism has won in our state and nationwide was deeply upsetting and traumatizing to me.
We don't vote. There's now yelling, why did Trump win? He won because you didn't vote. Come on. The same militant language of saying, I don't vote, I don't believe in it. Yes, sir. Now you want to lead the resistance to Trump when you helped produce Trump. So we go into an era of resistance. Tilden Hayes, at the same time, they started having racist attacks. The KKK was founded there. They started lynching blacks.
I'm here today because I believe in an America where we're all treated with fairness, dignity, and respect. I work with low-income immigrant clients who are victims of domestic violence, and Donald Trump and his supporters basically said that they don't matter. We've elected, as a country, someone who's admitted publicly sexually assaulting women and saying that he's going to build a wall and illegally deport people and violate constitutional principles. I've had clients come into my office crying and asking if this means that they're going to be deported. I have friends who called me crying last night saying that they don't feel safe going outside in the street where they live. Last night I was very angry. I was very disappointed. I was disgusted and embarrassed that we could elect someone that is filled with such hate and such division, has no knowledge of anything, no skills whatsoever other than to speak in broken sentences. And I want to be angry at his supporters, and I am, but a part of me also pities them and the kind of person that it takes to be filled with that much hate and ignorance that you can vote for someone for whatever reason, say whatever it is, the economy, that you don't have a job, that you're not happy with how the last years have gone for you, but you voted for someone who hates more than half of this country, women, Muslims, gay people, African Americans, Hispanics, women, every person that adds to the fabric of this country and makes America great and what it is and shapes its freedom. You voted for someone that hates that. And for anyone that says that they believe in constitutional principles and government, you don't. You fucking don't if you voted for him.
Thank you.
So Republicans, Donald Trump, congratulations. You won the White House. Yes, Hillary Clinton won about 500,000 more votes,
But he won more electors, and that means that according to the U.S. Constitution, once the Electoral College meets and votes, Donald Trump is going to officially be the president-elect. Let that sink in, America. This guy is going to be the president of the United States and the face of the country to the world.
Automatically attracted to beautiful. I just start kissing them. It's like a magnet. You just kiss. I don't even wait. And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything. Whatever you want. Grab them by the.
Great job, America. So now, to the 60,265,858 people who voted for Donald Trump, and the nearly 100 million people who didn't bother to vote at all, even though you were eligible, we here at AM Joy are going to tell you what you've won. Donald Trump now heads the Republican Party, which controls all three branches of government. They control the House, the Senate, and the White House. And the Supreme Court is poised to be filled by the new Republican president. Now, you've given Trump, a man alternately described as vengeful, erratic, narcissistic, dangerous, and temperamentally unfit to be president, and that's just what conservative Republicans said about him. You've given him control of the FBI, the CIA, the NSA, the IRS. Pretty ironic, since he probably hasn't paid taxes in 18 years, not to mention drones and nuclear weapons. Politically, Republicans no longer have any excuse to not do the things that they've been promising their voters for decades. And Trump has no excuse for not doing the things he promised during his campaign. And that means that once he gets to Washington, Trump will have to get really busy. He's promised to build a wall across the southern border. Now, that's going to require an appropriation from the Republican Congress. And why wouldn't they do it? I mean, you wouldn't want Trump voters punishing you in 2018 in the midterms for not keeping your promises, right? Mexico paying for it is not going to happen. So, America, if this wall...
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Stop the Madness and Keep It Real. I'm your host, Sean L. In Studio 51 today with me is Courtney. Courtney, how you doing this evening?
Check one, check two, sound check. All right, there we go.
Come on, Courtney, how you doing this morning?
Still breathing, so I'm good.
You know, we listened to some statements by people, but what we're talking about today is the state of America, the autopsy of the 2016 election. It's been 7 days since we elected a president, and everybody's asking the same question, Courtney. Why? What happened? And how could this happen? Well, we know what happened. And we know why it happened. But we don't know, well, we know how it happened. We don't know why it happened.
Well, wasn't one of the electorates, he resigned. I guess he saw it coming early.
Well, you know,
I thought they which state he was from. I can't remember right offhand, but he saw it coming early.
Yeah, he seen it coming. It's
Vietnamese too, from the Vietnamese.
Last week we had Black Lives Matter protesters and backers on the show. We had Trump protesters, backers on the show, and we had Bernie Sanders backers on the show. Okay, and I'm just gonna keep it real right here for everybody, 100%. Trump is our president. And everybody need to get over it. Get out the streets. If you ask why, I'm going to tell you why. Okay? I'm not telling you not to stand up for your democracy and fight Trump and question everything he does, because that's what I plan on doing when I come on the airwaves. Okay? But you had a chance to make things right in America, and you chose to make a protest vote. And we're going to talk about that when we do the autopsy of the 2016 election. You had your chance to have your voice heard. You didn't want that chance. You had your chance to do what you thought was right, and you did it. And that was your constitutional rights to do it. Trump is your president, and he's a person who walked with hate groups and has divided the union to the point of civil war. And everybody asked us, have we been here before? Well, I'm going to tell you, yes, we've been here before. And I'm going to give you a history lesson, how we got here now, and what we did before when we went through this.
Okay.
If you're a law enforcement officer, and everybody know I'm going to talk about the police, because I am a brotherhood of that union, You are in no better place, but you're in a worse place than you was last Tuesday. And I'm going to tell you why. Everybody sees you as the bad guy now. So you got to stand up to the plate and do what I know that all police officers can do in America. And that's treat everybody with respect, uphold the law, and stand the line. Allow people to exercise their constitutional rights, protect people from being injured, protect the protesters, and equally distribute the law. Property is not a value right now in America, okay? So if somebody damaged your police car, break a window, that could be paid by the insurance company, okay? Sometimes it takes more of a stronger person to step back and let people vent before we go into the law and order stance of beating people or arresting people. We've been there. The people in the streets right now, they want you to arrest them. The people in the streets right now wants the news media to come over and see you arrested. The people in the streets right now were just like the young people in the streets May 4th, 1970. That date, remember it, because we're going to come back to that date when we get deeper into our discussion here. A lot of people say, well, get over it, Trump's the president. Get behind him. People, let's get real here. When Barack Obama was elected president in 2008 and 2012, nobody was talking about get behind Barack Obama. Nobody was talking about let's kumbaya, so don't expect it now, okay? In 2008, lawmakers that you put in office for this country went into a secret meeting, and I'm going to play a tape of that also, and came out and said they're going to make the president a one-time president. Jim DeMint said go along with nothing, even though if it's good for America, we're going to oppose him, okay? So it's time that everybody understand when that pendulum swings and you push it too far, it comes back the other way, and guess what? We're there now. All right. What we're going to do about it, I'm going to tell you, I don't know. Is America going to be in a civil war again? I don't know. There's 3 dates I want you to remember before we get deeper into our discussion. And those dates are 1776, 1861, and 1968. Those 3 dates I just gave you was the date that we stood on this step and America was at war with herself. Now we back here again looking at the front yard and seeing the same thing play over and over and over. When are we going to learn? Or do we have to repeat our past to make up for our mistakes? It's time for the politicians to sit down with the community, and it's time for the community to sit down and listen to the politicians, and it's time for the people who is going to get stuck in the middle, the police officers that I was talking about earlier, because you are in the middle now, okay? There have been over 200 incidents of racial hate crimes committed since November 8th. 200, folks. Churches is being burned down. People are being attacked in the streets because of their race, their color. People being pulled out of their cars because of who they voted for. You've seen the videos. Is this the type of America that we want? Is this the type of America that everybody visioned their kids living in? Your kids being beat up and jumped on. In elementary schools, we got kids walking into cafeterias screaming racial epithets, and everybody thinks it's funny. No, people, it's not funny. Because if that was one of your kids walking through there saying that, and one of the students stood up on the desk and cracked his head with a chair, and he's in the hospital in a coma, nobody will be laughing there. We got our kids, who should be kids, out doing the grown folks things, and we sitting here thinking it's funny. America, it's time to do a self-check. Police officers, it's time that you do the best self-check, because your actions is going to dictate whether America explode or whether America stays together as one. Remember those 3 dates I gave you, 1776, 1861, and 1968. If you're a historian and you paid attention in history class, those dates are very important that I gave you. And we're going to talk about them now, And you're going to hear about them all the way up to next year and all the way past next year. Matter of fact, you're going to hear 1968 more than you ever even believed that you ever thought of it. Just to tell you, Black Lives Matters, North Dakota Indians, the Green Party, Bernie or Bust, Women for Justice are all the people that's out there protesting right now. And people say there's a war on police. A statement from the Chief of Police Officers Association from the state of Arizona. The last 14 days has been the deadliest days for law enforcement officers in American history. They're now dealing with white ring groups like the KKK, the Freedom Party, the Militia for Tomorrow, who feels that no law applies to them. They can do whatever they want to do, whenever they want to do it. And they see law enforcement officers as part of the government. So they don't see you as a hero. They don't see you as a 911 responder. They see you as a person who's standing in their way of their life and not being told what to do or stopping them from living up under any laws. 8 police officers has died in the last 14 days. Most of them by the hands of right-wing militia-believing people. One, even a Donald Trump supporter, who was thrown out of a football game for harassing black patrons there. He ambushed 2 police officers in Idaho and shot them when they was in their police cars. So this is going to touch across all lines. It's time for America to check herself and think about what's going on. It's time for you to stop saying, oh, this is just the way it is. No, it's not just the way it is. You have prosecutors now that's going to be looking at people through the wrong eyes. And communities that thought they would never be touched are being touched now with this racial hate. So it's time for everyone to understand that. Now we're going to get into the autopsy of the 2016 election. For all you people on Facebook, if you want to continue to enjoy Stop the Madness, Keep It 100, we are being simulcast on internet radio. And under FCC rules, we can't be on Facebook for this long. So go to Facebook Radio, STMK Radio 100 page, click on the link, and come right into our studio, please. Back to the live broadcast here. Now, Courtney, we're going to break this down because everybody keep asking this question. And you remember we did a whole show on November 8th, I think it was, we did the whole show.
Right. Election day.
On election day. On election day, we did a whole show, Courtney, on voting. Right. We told the people to get out to vote. We asked them to exercise their constitutional rights. We even told them what was at stake and what would happen if they didn't vote. So let's break this down here. Donald Trump election victory proves one thing, Courtney.
What's that?
That for everything anybody knew about politics, they were wrong. Okay?
All the experts. Huh?
All the experts was wrong. Remember we talked about the polls.
Right.
How the polls was playing and the polls was wrong. Okay?
Was that the plan?
No, it wasn't the plan because you know why? There's a hidden factor into this that nobody's seen. But they should have seen it because all during the primaries, they was talking about the Bernie or Bust people not coming to Hillary's side.
Right.
They was talking about millennials had a problem with Hillary. Okay? And people pushed that off. But that was a serious problem. Talking in the chat room right now, we see the chat room, they all over the place. The phone calls we was receiving. That was a serious, serious problem right there. And a serious problem for Hillary. And Hillary was a flawed candidate. And even though she represent the best that we had to move forward with, a lot of people took the idea, well, hey, we're going to burn the house down and we're going to go through the pain, and then 2020 everybody's gonna come over to our side and see what we're talking about. Okay. And Bernie or bust people, yes, that was the attitude, and yes, you took it there and you ran with it and you did it. I talked to some last week. I talked to some today, so I understand that was your constitutional rights. You stood up for what you believed in and your beliefs, and you did it. So I'm not going to say you was wrong for doing it, but we're going to break this down for everybody of why the American, the Grammys and changes they was talking about and controversy nominees, they ain't had nothing to do with it. Demographics and none of that had nothing to do with it, Courtney.
Or was it just that the people were fed up this time around?
I think
a lot of people were fed up.
That's correct.
Period.
That's correct. And they asking a lot of questions. But make no mistake about it, okay? Donald Trump turned 2016 over on his head.
Oh, yes.
One nightmare is over with. Another's about to begin. It's just beginning, okay? And I'm going to keep it quote. I hope Donald Trump do the right thing, but he didn't put Bannon, Mr. Ku Klux Klan himself, sitting on his right side of his advisor, okay? That's a hard swallow for people to take. I don't have to tell you about Bannon. Everybody Google him, go get your own opinion of him, read about him. I don't even want, that's an issue I don't even want to talk about right there, okay? But I'm going to stand up for what I believe in, okay? So I believe that I'm going to speak to my beliefs. If you don't agree with me, when I open the phone lines up, give us a call and let us know what you think, okay? In the chat room, it's blowing up. Do what you got to do, okay? But I'm going to stand up for my beliefs, and I'm not going to tell anyone not to stand up for their beliefs, not to protest and all that. I spoke what I believed about it earlier, okay? Because had you feel that much about Donald Trump, knowing what was all at stake, then you wouldn't have did what you did, okay? So I don't understand the premise of going out protesting. I understand why you're doing it, but it's a moot point, okay? They're not going to take him back. Hillary's not going to be the president just because she got most votes, okay? You have to look at this. Donald Trump is the first president in history, Courtney, that won the presidency 2 million votes less than the person that ran before him. Okay?
Well, something's going on here for sure. I mean, because he was the one that was claiming early that the election was going to be rigged anyway, wasn't he?
Well, it was rigged. We're going to talk about that also.
All right.
Okay, because courts and things are coming out now about this certain thing of cross-check.
The cross-check.
Okay, cross-check. Nobody knew about cross-check. You know why? Because we were so worried about emails, and we were so worried about grabbing pussies, and we were so worried about building a wall, and we were so worried about Donald Trump and him not having anything else to say. We forgot about all the important things. Okay, we forgot about his policy. What policies is he going to enact? Now we know Donald Trump ain't going to act in policies, okay? His governor, one of the religious fanatics, okay, it's the man in charge. One step from the presidency, okay? I'm going to get into that. Somebody said that the professor that said Donald Trump was going to win is going to be impeached or resign. But we're going to talk about that later, okay? Nobody talked about the vice president. Nobody knew the dangerous people that's going into the White House, okay? For a lot of people, it may not matter, okay? But to a lot of people of color, it does. If you listen to the one thing that I played, the one cut from the girl, that little girl's worried. There are close to 4 million people who went to the federal government and gave them their information and tried to do the right thing under the pretense that they would not be victimized. And I'm talking about dreamers, okay? Dreamers came in, did everything they were supposed to do, okay, because they're American citizens, okay, and some of the other people not, okay, and they gave up information that right now, come January 20th, ICE can be kicking in their door, snatching their families out of the country. 3 million people. I take Donald Trump at his word that he is going to deport everyone. Okay? And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to hold Donald Trump to his words because, as the Bernie or Buzz people say, I'm going to say it right here. Build that wall, deport them people, stop Obamacare, cut the social programs. Everybody has to feel the pain before they realize that they have to stand up and look out for their own interests. And I'm going to say this, and I say this because 46.7 people in America did not vote. They did not vote. Knowing what was at stake, they just let it walk away. Of that, Courtney, only 51% of the people voted. Okay.
Isn't that just a popular vote?
That's just the popular vote. I'm going to break it down to you how Donald Trump won because he won the same way that he won the primary. 16 people in the primaries. Everybody divided, rolled up, and his 35% of his people and his base continued to vote while everybody else was looking the other way. That's why he walked through the primary. The general election, okay. Check out these numbers. Courtney, this here is really, really bad, Courtney. Check these numbers out.
Give me the stats.
We're going to go to stats here, and we're going to check this out. Donald Trump won, and this is how he won, to answer your question, how, was voter suppression. And we're going to talk about cross-check in a minute and the voter laws that was enacted.
Okay. Yeah.
We just talked about 46.7% of America did not even care enough to vote. And then 537,000 people voted third party. And most of the Bernie backers and them that went to the Green Party, okay, were probably Hillary Democrats. Okay, and that was done in a protest vote. So they put a protest vote out there.
Right.
Remember that number.
Oh, yeah.
537,000. Now, the question is why? Last week we talked about this before we walked down the road, and we're going to talk about it again right now. Hillary Clinton won the popular vote by 47.7%. Donald Trump was 2 million votes below her. Now, everybody say, well, that's not fair, but yes, it is fair, okay? Because of what happens in history, okay? Remember the dates that I gave you because we're going to go back and talk about that history, okay? You let it go when you should have been fighting it, and you should have been fighting this long before November 8th, 2016, okay? The Electoral College. Everybody knew that this could happen. It happened in 3 times in our lifetime. The last time was year 2000, Al Gore versus George W. Bush. So we knew it was going to happen. But this is the shocking part. 29% of Latinos, Courtney, voted for Trump. 29%.
All right.
A man who assaulted them, who talked about them, who insulted them, who said what he was going to do. This is mind-boggling. 13 to 16%, and I'm going to correct this right here, 16% of Black America voted for Trump.
Okay.
13% of women voted for him. Remember, they said Hillary had the women problem.
Right.
Okay. 3% of Black men voted for him.
Right.
Okay. Now I understand why they went that way because of jobs and what he said he's going to do and everything. But you ask yourself, Trump won every state that he should never be able to allow to even come in and take, which was good states. Okay. And we have to go with this, Courtney, down to the point of it is Michigan, Ohio.
60,000 names removed voters poll just in Michigan alone.
That's correct. Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Florida, and North Carolina. Michigan has a Republican governor who refused to pay $1 a day to put chlorine in your drinking water. In your drinking water.
Right.
Okay? But they didn't come out to vote. Or they went third party. That is mind-boggling that they refused to come out and vote and they went third party. Wisconsin. And I'm talking about Detroit. I'm not talking about the suburbs and up in there. I'm talking about Detroit, Flint, black controlled areas. Okay? There's no doubt about it. What they did, how they did it, when they did it. Okay? They didn't come out to vote. 75,000 people in Michigan alone failed to vote. I'm talking about registered voters here.
All right.
Hillary Clinton lost Michigan by 0.3%. 12,000 votes, people. 12,000 votes. Think about this. 75,000 people who's registered voters in the state of Michigan, Detroit, and Flint did not even bother to cast a vote. We're not talking about the people that was removed from Crosstrack neither.
Right.
We're talking about registered voters. Voting for this year was down 20%. Go to Wisconsin. Hillary Clinton lost Wisconsin by 1%. In Milwaukee alone, 90,000 voters didn't come out to vote. In Milwaukee, that's a black community with a sheriff that they think is very racist.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, the Milwaukee County Sheriff. Okay,
Right.
and they didn't come out to vote. I don't understand that at all. That is mind-boggling. We're not even going to talk. Okay, we're talking about states that is heavily occupied by Bernie Sanders supporters and Democrats. Okay, I'm not even going to any other state to say that. I'm talking about Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. Clinton lost by 1.1% of the vote. But half of the people voted for Jill Stein and Gary Johnson. Gary Johnson didn't even know what Aleppo was. But he got over close to 1 million votes.
Right.
And everybody yelling now about Donald Trump. You don't yell about Donald Trump. With those kind of numbers, you should be yelling about people not coming out and voting and taking care of their own self-interest and taking care of their community and worrying about their family and their kids. That's the problem here, people. That's the problem. The other state we're going to talk about is North Carolina.
Let's see.
Now, North Carolina went to court and had all these problems. And we're talking about black voters. Hillary Clinton lost North Carolina. Very, 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 very short and percentage-wise of less than 1%. We're not even going to talk about the people that didn't come out and vote as they were supposed to. I got to go pay some bills, and we're going to pay some bills, and then when we come back, we're going to talk about the question that they had in the chat room that everybody was asking about, and all the pundits keep telling everybody, we never been here before. We don't know what's going to happen. Well, let me tell you this. Stop watching CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News, okay? Because they're not reporting it properly as they should. Yes, we've been here before. We already know what's going to happen. Each time we stood on these steps, it was a matter of life and death. I want you to think about that until we come back.
Fell by 15% in the third quarter. Sales were strong in North America and China from July through September, but it didn't make up for sluggish demand in Japan and a stronger yen. The Japanese automaker, which manufactures the Nissan, Infiniti, and Datsun brands, says profit in the last quarter was $1.4 billion, down from nearly $1.7 billion a year earlier. Quarterly sales dipped 12% to $26 billion. Nissan recently became the top shareholder in the scandal-plagued Japanese rival Mitsubishi.
The top of the weekly Associated Press college football poll looks a lot like it did last week. AP's Jack Briggs has a closer look at the schools and their rankings.
The top 6 spots in last week's Associated Press poll are the same in this week's. That means Alabama on top with Michigan second, Clemson third, Washington fourth, Louisville fifth, and Ohio State sixth. Alabama received all but one of the 61 first-place votes, with Michigan getting the other. The Crimson Tide has won 21 straight games dating back to September 19, 2015. The Nick Saban coach squad has won 13 straight from top 25 opponents. This is Jack Briggs.
Did you know you can advertise your company or even your own podcast on the AP Radio Network? You can reach listeners in your home market or across our network spanning 226 countries. Reach listeners on iHeartRadio, Amazon Kindle, AP Mobile, and more. For more information, call Caroline Burns at 212-621-1582 or email sponsorship@ap.org. That's sponsorship@ap.org.
Big back Mosul from the Islamic State group has turned up a mass grave. The militants have executed thousands of people as they run from the only big city in Iraq they still hold. A woman is under arrest in New York for allegedly pushing another woman onto the tracks at the Times Square station. The woman was crushed to death by a subway train. This is AP Radio News. Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie have now agreed on a child custody arrangement as they divorce. Here's our Jamie Fryer.
Angelina Jolie Pitt will have sole custody of the couple's 6 children. A statement from the actress's rep says under the joint agreement, Brad Pitt will have what's termed therapeutic visits with the kids. The statement says the custody deal was reached more than a week ago. Jolie Pitt filed for divorce in September after reports that Pitt was abusive toward the couple's 15-year-old son on a private flight. I'm Jamie Fryer.
Kensington Palace is confirming that Prince Harry and the American actress Meghan Markle of the TV show Suits are an item, and the palace is slamming the media for allegedly harassing her. Harry says he's worried about her safety. The palace says there are racial and sexist undertones to some of the online comments. I'm Rita Foley, AP Radio News.
You're listening to Stop the Madness. Keep it 100 on STMK Radio 100.
Welcome back, family. I'm in Studio 51. This is your host, Sean L. In the studio today, sitting back on the red carpet, is Courtney. Courtney, we was talking about the autopsy for 2016 election as in the chat room it was blowing up, and the chat room's going up right now, and they want to know why people went for Trump.
Right.
They want to know who burned the ship down. Now, everybody's running right now. The question is not who burned the ship down. The ship is already burned down. They burned the house down. I'm going to ask this question that they asked in the chat room, Courtney, and I don't know if you've seen that one over there. But the question was, did Trump win the election, or was it given to him for a reason? Now, that's a good question that somebody in the chat room asked. And you have to ask yourself that, why would somebody ask you that? Did Trump win the election? Okay, or did somebody give it to him for a reason? I'm going to go back to a question that an interview that we had with the Bernie or Bust people, okay? And I'm going to keep it real. For all you Bernie or Bust people and people that back Bernie Sanders, what was your beliefs? He told me that, and this was on the show, he told me that he wanted money out of politics, climate change, and he wanted rights for everybody, criminal justice reform. He wanted the Trade Act stopped, and he wanted the big bankers and Wall Streets ran out of government. I asked the Black Male Life Matter representative on the same show, what was his belief? Okay, he wanted the crime bill to be adjudicated. Okay, he wanted justice reform and police reform. He wanted police officers to be held accountable for their actions. And he was pretty good about this because he talked about bad police officers. He didn't say all police officers. He said bad police officers. So that's a start right there. Okay. Then we start on the conversation with some other people that was there on the round table. Now, to those people, I responded just like I'm going to respond right now to keep it real. If those were your key beliefs and you wanted this to happen and you wanted the pipeline in North Dakota to be stopped and you wanted the other pipeline not to be started and stop big business from tearing up the land and fracking, and you don't want no fracking and all this. If those was your key beliefs, well, America, I'm talking about Bernie supporters right now. So I know the chat room's blowing up and I'm gonna get trolled. You know, I'm used to people coming on my page and cussing me out and calling me names and all that. I'm used to that now. So they're in the chat room right now blowing it up. But if those was your true beliefs, there was only two people that was going to the presidency. Okay. That was Hillary Clinton, who took up your platform, and Donald Trump, who has a total different platform. Okay. Right. Everybody knew this. Courtney, everybody knew that.
Right.
They should have known it. Okay. So if that's your true beliefs, then how are you going to do a protest vote? How are you going to vote third party knowing that neither one of them has a chance in hell of breathing the same air that you breathe? Okay? Come on, let's ask that question, America. How are you going to do a protest vote, Courtney? That's like me talking about I'm going to buy me a brand new Cadillac, but I ain't going to pay the extra $40 for the rims.
Right.
How am I going to drive the car if I don't put tires on it?
That's right.
Okay. Now, for 4 years, a lot of damage could be done. A lot of damage. Okay. For North Dakota, that pipeline's going in, and a lot of people going to be arrested, and their rights is going to be, as everybody else say, stepped on. Think about that. All the supporters of the pipeline. Not only is that pipeline going in, but the other pipeline that Barack Obama stopped is going in also. And that's the pipeline that's coming all the way from Canada, all the way down to Louisiana with the sand oil. That's day one, January 21st, day one, that legislation will be signed by the Trump administration. He already said it. You ask yourself, what else is going on? Okay, day one. Criminal justice reform. Okay, I'm going to say this. If you believed in criminal justice reform, how you not going to vote for the candidate that says she's going to give it to you? Mm-hmm. Because Donald Trump has already told you, okay, and this is for the Black Lives Matters people, okay? I'm going to break it down and I'm going to step on all of them. Ain't nobody getting a break here. I'm calling everybody out, okay? Right. Everybody. In the chat room, I just typed up, I'm calling everybody out and I'm going to call you out. So I'm going down it. Okay? Black Lives Matters. You out here protesting for 2 years. You out here saying that you are being mistreated. Your rights are being taken. You're being hunted like animals. Nobody's being held accountable. How you going to sit home and not get in the game? I don't understand that. Donald Trump already told you, okay, you're living in hell. You can't even walk down the streets without being shot. He told you he was law and order. And he's putting more police officers on the street. And his attorney general, Rudy Giuliani, if he makes attorney general or secretary of state, he's going to institute a national stop and frisk. Okay, this is not my words, okay? This is words from Republicans who was on the round table with us, with Black Lives Matters, Bernie supporters, and everybody on the state of America, okay? So don't get mad at me, America. These are the stuff that people talk about that you should have been aware of instead of worried about if Donald Trump was grabbing women's coochies
30 years ago. You should have been asking this question instead of worried about if Hillary Clinton's emails was any good. Nobody here can tell me what policy Donald Trump is going to do and how he's going to do it. Okay? I'm going to build a wall, and it's going to be a nice, pretty wall, and you're going to love it. That's all you can tell me. It was Michigan. In Michigan. He told them that the Mexicans was going to pay for it, Courtney.
Oh yeah. Well, he's already changed part of that statement again.
Right.
He said now part of it's just going to be a fence.
But not only that, Courtney.
In certain areas.
Not only that, Mexico ain't paying for it.
Right. Oh no.
The American taxpayers paying for it.
Yes.
So get ready, American taxpayers. You're going to pay for it. Okay. Not only are Donald Trump supporters going to pay for the wall and be hurt by some of his policies, okay, because I'm going to break that down because I got numbers right here from the Census Bureaus, from states who didn't get in Medicare, some things that nobody never talked about. And you know why they didn't talk about them?
Why is that?
Because they didn't want Trump supporters and them to come out against him. 46.7% of American people did not vote. This is who is going to hurt. Trump's 25% was going to be there. If Trump walked off in the fire, they was jumping in fire with him, okay? Right. So I don't care about Donald Trump being president right now because he's there. He's going in the White House, okay? But I'm talking about why people failed to look out for their own interests and vote. So you look at that, Courtney. Nobody knows his policies. Nobody knows what he's going to do, okay? We're going to talk about in the last couple of hours of the policy changes and stuff he did. But I told you today, as I told you at the round table, and I told you Friday, if you listened to the simulcast show and you heard us, was that we've been here before. And each time we stood on this step, there was a mass quality loss of life. I gave you 3 dates earlier in the show when we first started. I told you to remember, Courtney. Remember those dates? Remember I told them?
1776, 1861, and 1968.
Okay, so we're going to do a little history here, okay? But before we get some history here, I want to ask America this question. Can you tell me, and in the chat room, I want you to tell me this because I want you to tell me what era or year am I talking about? I just want you to tell me this because we're going to come back after I give you your history lesson. We're going to come back to this era. Cities just got done rioting and burning. Protests both at the National Republican Convention and at the Democrat National Convention. Police shootings across America of unarmed black men. Police officers being killed in America's streets. Young protesters in the streets after an election of a president who ran on a ticket of law and order. A person going to the White House that has cases before the court that could lead to them either being impeached or resign. I'm going to say that again. That could lead to them being impeached or resign. I want you in the chat room, I want you to tell me what year we're talking about because we're coming back for that question. And I'm going to open up the phone lines at 7 o'clock. You can give us a call at 866-484-7865. That's 866-484-7865. 866-484-STMK. Stop the madness. Keep it 100. Now we're gonna go right into it, Courtney.
All right.
July 4th, 1776. Everybody should know that date in America. Because that was the American Revolutionary War. That war lasted for 8 years. It also is known as the American War of Independence. That war was fought for 2 reasons. Okay? Taxation and the unjust civil rights violation of American citizens by the Crown. And everybody knows the Crown should be If you don't know what the crown is, that's the British authorities. Okay. The second date, Courtney, what did I give you?
1861.
1861 was the start of the Civil War. Remember that, people. 1861 was the start of the Civil War. But actually, everybody thinks the Civil War started over slavery, and that's not true. Everybody thought that they was fighting over civil rights. That's not true. That's a misnomer, if you want to say. That's something that people put out there and everybody grab. The Civil War wasn't fought about slavery, and the Civil War wasn't fought over the civil rights violation. It ended up going into that, okay, but that wasn't the start of it, okay? And everybody should understand this, okay? The Civil War started because Lincoln won the election in 1860. And he won on a ticket that said no new slave states. Remember, the only states that allowed slaves were the southern states: Texas, Arkansas, Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, North and South Carolina, Virginia, West Virginia, Kentucky, and Florida, and Louisiana. Anywhere up past west of the Mississippi or north of the Mississippi, you couldn't own slaves. And that was the new law coming into Washington when Lincoln was elected. That was 1860, folks. Congress was going to pass that law, and the southern states knew that, okay? So most of the slave states knew that at some point the northern people was going to outnumber them in Congress and was going to force them to give up their slaves, so they broke away from the Union. That was the start and the period of the Civil War, which was 1865 to 1877. Okay? Remember those two dates right there. Okay? Because at the end of the Civil War, which came about slavery and civil rights violation, that came a period of called Reconstruction. That's where freeing the slaves, voting rights, and all that stuff came into play after the Civil War. Okay? So everybody has to understand that. After the Civil War, the civil rights things came into play. Okay? And you can take them dates from 1870, 1871, 1876, 1875. All of those dates, Civil Rights Acts was enacted in Washington, D.C. Okay? Remember that. The most important ones was the changes to the Constitution. And everybody has to understand why they changed the Constitution, Courtney.
Why is that?
Okay? Because under Reconstruction, which that's what it's called, because they was changing the Constitution in the way of American life, the 13th Amendment had to be changed because the 13th Amendment abolished slavery. The 14th Amendment had to be changed because that addressed citizenship, rights, equal protection under the law for all people. Now you have to remember, slaves was not considered people.
3/5.
Not even 3/5. Okay? They was property up until the 13th Amendment.
All right.
Okay? That had to be changed. Remember, I just said the 13th Amendment had to be changed.
Right.
It had to be changed because black people was no longer property. They was going to be citizens. So when they changed the 13th Amendment and made them citizens, they had to go back into the 14th Amendment and change that to give all people equal rights. But they still wasn't talking about equal rights for everybody. Okay? The 15th Amendment in 1870 and 1869 had to be changed because that forbids discrimination in voting rights of citizens based on race, color, and previous servitude. Now, if 1869 and 1870, they gave me rights to vote, why did we need Voting Rights Acts later on? Why did we need any, if the Constitution said I had the right to vote in 1870, why did we have to go back and fight for Voting Rights Act? Because they did not see people of color as citizens. Okay, they were
Right.
talking about the kings, men and women. Okay, remember that because we're coming back to that. And when they talked about sex, okay, women didn't have the right.
Right. That wasn't until what 1920s.
Okay, so the 15th Amendment came back and changed. And this amendment, the 19th, came back. Okay, and the 19th Amendment ratified in 1920 to stop them specifically from discriminating against men and women of all races and sex and slavery. Okay.
All right.
But then the southern states, as we talked about this last week on the Reconstruction stuff, remember they started putting in poll taxes and tests and all this other stuff in the southern states to stop you from voting down on that. So you have to ask yourself this. The 14th Amendment particular, we're going to talk about that right now because that's the amendment that's in court and we fight all the time, every year, all the way up. Some of the basic Supreme Court rulings came out of the 14th Amendment, and that was Roe versus Wade, 1973, the abortion law.
Okay.
Bush versus Al Gore, 2000, the presidential election. Okay. That was all based on the 14th Amendment, people. But why did it take so long for people to have that right if it was already established in 1870? Go back to December 5th, 1955. Bus boycott, Montgomery, Alabama. Then you have 1964 and 1965 Voter Rights Act. Okay. Why did the president have to sign Voter Rights Act all over again if the 14th and 13th Amendment had already said I had the right to vote? Now we're going to bring it home. And this is why people are in the streets, and this is why you cannot forget about what happened in the past. You must remember your history. February the 8th. Okay. But before we go there, I want to go back to the last year that I told you. What was that last year? I told you the third one, Courtney?
1968.
1968. 1968 was considered one of the worst years in American history. So of all the years that we had, all of the wars that we had, everybody say 1968 is the worst year in American history. You know why 1968 was the worst year in American history?
Why is that, Sean?
Let me break it down for everybody before you forget about it. Riots across American cities, untold numbers of deaths in cities, inner cities across America and outer suburbs. Shootouts with police officers across America. Police officers being shot and killed by militants. Black males, unarmed, being shot in city streets by police officers. The Vietnam War, where untold Americans, men and women, was dying overseas. That's 1968, people. February 8th, 1968, the American Civil Rights Movement and civil rights protests staged a protest at an all-white bowling alley in Orangeburg, South Carolina. The State Highway Patrol was called in, and 3 college students were killed. This is your history, people. This is something that you better think about. Your kids, America, is out in the streets fighting with the police. April 4th, 1968. Everybody should know that date. They should know that date by heart. Okay? April 4th, 1968. The assassination of Martin Luther King in Memphis, Tennessee. Right here in Cleveland, Ohio, my city, July 23rd, black militants led by Fred Almond Evans got into a fierce shootout with the Cleveland Police Department in the Glenville area, leaving police officers lying dead in the city streets being broadcast all over America. Police officers laying wounded in the city streets all over America. Right here in Cleveland, broadcast, evening news, police officers outgunned, dead like a foreign nation, laying in the streets of Cleveland. This is why people say 1968 was the worst year that ever happened in American history. Think about that, where we at. Think about when the community's crying and nobody's listening. Militants are just around the corner. Are we going back to a 1968? Think about October 14th, 1968. That was the crease in the Vietnam War where the president told soldiers they couldn't come home. Mandatory stayover. Okay. We had been in war for so long, they didn't have people to send over there to relieve them, so they had to stay there. And you have to ask yourself, Courtney, I'm going to go back to the question I asked you before. What year was you thinking that I was talking about, Courtney, when I talked about cities just got done rioting and all that stuff?
Oh, that was 68.
Okay, that's what everybody in the chat room coming right back now. They saying 68, 68. Well, let me tell you this, okay? And I'm going to give you a lesson today, and you're going to learn something good here. A Republican president named Richard Milhouse Nixon had just got finished campaigning on a platform designed to reach the silent majority of middle class and working class Americans. Okay, the people who was forgot and left behind or lived in the suburbs, okay, as the inner city exploded, okay? Remember that. He promised to bring us together. And many Americans, weary years after years of all the anti-war and civil rights protests, were happy to hear of one thing, Courtney. Law and order's going to be restored to the streets.
Yeah,
okay. Listen to that. Remember that now.
Right.
Because I want you to understand that. The foreign policy ran by the Democrats was in such a disarray, and the irony over the Vietnam War had the Republican president promising to end the Vietnam War with honor and to bring peace, though he was never clearly explaining how he was going to do this, nor did he give any policy. That was 1968, people, with Richard Milhouse Nixon. Nixon oversaw some of the most dramatic changes in the United States Cold War foreign policy. And a lot of young kids ain't going to understand this, but the major player in that was the Soviet Union.
Right.
Okay? For the people who don't know who the Soviet Union is, and in the chat room they asking right now who the Soviet Union, that's AKA Russia. Okay? In 1968, the worst year of our history, in a presidential election, Russia was playing then. Okay? And think about what's happening. Russia was playing then. I'm going to come back to that because I'm going to give you the parallel of something that somebody said. We haven't been here. They don't know what's going to happen, and it never happened before. That's why you don't listen to the main media, because the media is not going to tell you the truth about what's going on. But on here, on Stop the Madness, Keep It Real, we're going to keep it 100 for you. Okay? Now, Courtney, you have to ask yourself now. Everybody say 1968. What changed in 1968 was that America, once again, was on the doorstep of violence and at war with herself. And we was getting ready to face a racial war. We was getting ready to face a government overthrow. You had militants with rifles shooting police officers dead in the streets. So there was no thing about tomorrow. They weren't thinking about what we're going to do tomorrow. They was thinking about ending everything there. Somebody get a rifle and start shooting, they ain't thinking about going cut their grass tomorrow. Okay, the revolution has started. Okay, keep that in mind, folks, uh, about this, because as I tell you about this, I want you to understand how important these dates are and how America. Why do we have to repeat our mistakes and go back in history to get things right? That's the question. I'm gonna give you this date, Courtney, and this is a date that everybody should remember. May 4th, 1970. Right after Nixon was hired and promised law and order to the streets of America, students at Kent State University came out and took over the universities as they were across the United States in protest of the Vietnam War. This is why I tell law enforcement officers that you have to be at your height right now. The best of the best has to be there. The cream of the crop has to be there. If somebody's slacking, because you're only as good as your weakest link. So if you see an officer that ain't doing up what he should be at or slacking, pull him up, hold on to him, walk with him, and help him. This is very important because this changed America and it changed policing forever. Okay? Remember that. May 4th, 1970, the governor of the state of Ohio made good on his promise to the president that Ohio will bring law and order back to any campus taken over by students. Well, we all remember what happened that day, okay? And that was the Kent State shooting. 4 students died that day. 9 students have permanent injuries that affected their lives forever. But it also cost the presidency his situation, and it changed policing in America forever. You have to remember that, folks. Okay? Now, I want you to remember everything I told you about what Richard Milhouse Nixon campaigned on in 1968. Today, 2016, Courtney, today, we just got finished with the election.
Right.
Donald Trump campaign was designed to reach who? The solid majority and the middle class workers that was left behind by policies of previous administrations. Angry white males. Remember, that's how the media portrayed them.
Right.
Angry white males. Uneducated males. Okay? That's who he campaigned to. Does that sound familiar?
Oh yeah. Coming back again.
Okay.
And are they going to do it differently this time or what? That's the biggest question I'm looking at.
Well, you have to look at the whole thing as in its entirety here, Courtney. He promised to make America great again. That's the same platform that Richard Nixon ran on in 1968. So you heard this before, America. He promised to bring law and order back to the streets. Now, many Americans is very weary of the Black Lives Matter protests. Okay, we all know what they think of Black Lives Matters, and they all know it's not law and order, and they want them arrested, and they want them brought to the courthouse, and they were worried of the civil rights protests. And everybody's happy that Donald Trump said he's bringing back law and order. Does that sound familiar, Courtney? Yeah. That's the same thing that happened. Same thing that happened in 1968 when Richard Milhouse Nixon ran for re-election. So we've seen this before, folks. We've seen this before. We know what's going to happen, okay? Because history has already told us what's going to happen, okay? Because we're going back to that. Everything that Donald Trump ran on was the same platform that Republican President Richard Milhouse Nixon ran on, because he was having the same problems that we're having right now, okay? After the election in 2016, we have hundreds of thousands of students and protesters in the streets. That goes right back to what I told you again, Courtney, about 1968.
Right. And my thing is, let's follow the money this time.
Well, money this time can't help them.
Not so much the money helping, but somebody made money off of it back in '68.
Well, we know who's gonna make some money, okay? Because certain things gonna have to open up because the end of this coming back to where Richard Nixon found himself at in Vietnam. Okay, we don't have to worry about going to war. We already got 2 wars. Okay, Obama ended Iraq, but guess what? Iraq is not officially ended because Iraq can't take care of themselves. So we still there fighting for them. We got Syria starting up. Nobody, no telling what China going to do.
Right.
Okay. Now you look at this. Obama was saddened and stuck with a policy that everybody says is a failure of our foreign policy. Trump promised to bring victory with honor. He's going to bomb the hell out of ISIS. He didn't say nothing about how he's going to bring the troops home in Afghanistan. And he said he's going to go over to Iraq and he's going to take their oil, but he didn't say how he was going to take the oil and who was going to sit there and watch it for him.
Right, there you go.
Okay. He promised to bring peace in the Middle East. He promised to get out of NATO, which he changed. Remember, he changed that.
Oh, yeah.
And he promised to stop America from getting involved in other people's problems.
Sounds good, but he has to do it.
And he's going to rebuild the army. But he's never been entirely clear on how he was going to accomplish this. So, people, there you go. No matter what side you're on, Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, Green Party, it shows you that we've been here and we walked this side of the street before. Okay? And when America's kids is in the street, Courtney, in America, kids get killed. That brings a big, big change in everybody's philosophy. So if you got kids in college, you better think about this. You better sit down with them and talk to them about what happened in 1968. Because I'm pretty sure that the kids' parents didn't know that they was at these colleges protesting and getting involved in all this stuff until the call came across that, hey, some tragedy has happened. And that changed everything, okay? And if you listen to one of those statements and one of the protesters said, when she said that tragedy and people had to have casualties, okay? Right. That's what they're talking about, people. They got your kids in the streets protesting, and they're talking about some of them not coming back home, okay? So somebody better sit down and think about this before we have a 1968 all over again. And with that being said right there, Courtney, we're going to go pay some more bills. We're going to open up the phone lines. You can give us a call at
866-484-7865. That's 866-484-STMK.
Nissan's profit fell by 15% in the third quarter. Sales were strong in North America and China from July through September, but it didn't make up for sluggish demand in Japan and a stronger yen. The Japanese automaker, which manufactures the Nissan, Infiniti, and Datsun brands, says profit in the last quarter was $1.4 billion, down from nearly $1.7 billion a year earlier. Quarterly sales dipped 12% to $26 billion. Nissan recently became the top shareholder in the scandal-plagued Japanese rival Mitsubishi.
The top of the weekly Associated Press college football poll looks a lot like it did last week. AP's Jack Briggs has a closer look at the schools and their rankings.
The top 6 spots in last week's Associated Press poll are the same in this week's. That means Alabama on top with Michigan second, Clemson third, Washington fourth, Louisville fifth, and Ohio State sixth. Alabama received all but one of the 61 first-place votes, with Michigan getting the other. The Crimson Tide has won 21 straight games dating back to September 19, 2015. The Nick Saban coach squad has won 13 straight from top 25 opponents. This is Jack Briggs.
Did you know you can advertise your company or even your own podcast on the AP Radio Network? You can reach listeners in your home market or across our network spanning 226 countries. Reach listeners on iHeartRadio, Amazon Kindle, AP Mobile, and more. For more information, call Caroline Burns at 212-621-1582 or email sponsorship@ap.org. That's sponsorship@ap.org.
Take back Mosul from the Islamic State group has turned up a mass grave. The militants have executed thousands of people as they run from the only big city in Iraq they still hold. A woman is under arrest in New York for allegedly pushing another woman onto the tracks at the Times Square station. The woman was crushed to death by a subway train. This is AP Radio News. Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie have now agreed on a child custody arrangement.
A great business
divorce.
needs a
Here's
stunning
our Jamie
website.
Fryer.
And with
Angelina
Wix.com,
Jolie.
you can do it all by yourself. Wix.com makes it easy to look amazing online, no matter what type of business you're in. Show off your images in a beautiful gallery. Grow your contact list and get all your social media in one place, just the way you want. Your customers are going to love it. So, what are you waiting for? Show the world what you can do. Go to Wix.com and create your stunning website today. It's easy and free. You can do it all by yourself. Wix.com makes it easy. You can do it all by yourself. Wix.com makes it easy to look amazing online, no matter what type of business you're in. Show off your images in a
Pitt will have sole custody of the couple's 6 children. A statement from the actress's rep says under the joint agreement, Brad Pitt will have what's termed therapeutic visits with the kids. The statement says the custody deal was reached more than a week ago. Jolie Pitt filed for divorce in September after reports that Pitt was abusive toward the couple's 15-year-old son on a private flight. I'm Jamie Fryer.
Kensington Palace is confirming that Prince Harry and the American actress Meghan Markle of the TV show Suits are an item. And the palace is slamming the media for allegedly harassing her. Harry says he's worried about her safety. The palace says there are racial and sexist undertones to some of the online comments. I'm Rita Foley, AP Radio News.
You've been tuned in to Stop the Madness, keeping it 100 on STMK Radio 100. And now back to your host one more time, Sean L., Let, and Tone the Stone.
Yeah, Courtney, we've been talking about the effects of the election 2016 on the community and the people here. So we're going to talk about some things right here. The phone lines are open. If you want to call in, express your opinion, please do so. We're in the chat room. The chat room is blowing up right now, but I want to say a great woman has passed. Courtney, we started the show and didn't even show our respect to her. Glenn Eiffel died at 61. She was a pioneer in radio and reporting, and she's going to be missed a lot, a really lot, especially on public radio.
Yeah, PBS.
Now, what we're going to talk about here for the last part of the show is the policies that going to affect us that we need to really be talking about right now. We can't wait till January 20th. We must understand what's going on here. The number one policy for Donald Trump, and it was his policy he ran on, that he was going to repeal and replace Obamacare. Now, we have no idea what he's going to do and we have no idea how he's going to do it. So let's just keep it real here. If he appeals the Affordable Care Act, aka Obamacare, I'm gonna call it by its proper name, uh, the Affordable Care Act, there's nothing to replace it with, folks. There are more Republicans receiving health care than Democrats, okay? And at discounts. But let me say this right here. There's no way that Donald Trump can keep kids on their parents' policies until they're 26. There's no way that he can force insurance companies to keep people with pre-existing conditions. And there's no way that Medicare and Medicaid can stand the way it is now without the Affordable Care Act. It would collapse, folks. Okay? And when I say collapse, it would collapse. First of all, the insurance companies will the insurance companies will welcome caller to STMK Radio 100. Welcome caller to STMK Radio 100. You're on the air. Hello? Hello? Well, I guess they got disconnected, Courtney. They're not coming across. Oh, you know what? Welcome, caller. You're on the air.
Hey, it's Jason from Cleveland, Ohio.
That is correct. Go ahead with what you want to say. You're on the air.
Oh, I was just calling to let you know I was liking your show.
Oh, well, thank you very much for calling us. We hope you stay with us and understand it. We're going to talk about the issues and we're going to keep it real here on STMK Radio 100, and especially with the show Stop the Madness and Keep It 100. Thank you for calling.
Question.
Thank you.
All righty. Thank you. Best people calling in. The radio phone lines are open, people, so you have to bear with us as we try to keep the lines open and listen to people call. The chat room is fired up. You need to get into our social chat room and really enjoy what we talk about, because after the show, we go into the chat rooms also. So we're going back to the Affordable Care Act. And with the Affordable Care Act, there is no way that it can stand if it's repealed. And you can't keep parts of it. So they're going to have to go in and fix it. The reason the Affordable Care Act is in the condition it's in now, because when it was established, it was for everybody to play. Okay, not half the people play. And in 2010, we knew ahead of time that the premiums was going to skyrocket and go up. So it wasn't no big surprise. But let me tell you the surprise here. If the Affordable Care Act is scrapped, the people who are in public service right now, your first responders, your teachers, and all of them, their medical is going to skyrocket. Your employer is not going to absorb that cost, so you're paying $75 to $100 a month. That's going to skyrocket. Okay, you may pay up to $200 to $300 a month. So remember that it's going to hurt a lot of people. There's going to be close to 20 million people drop with no insurance. Period. You have to ask yourself, okay, is this what we really want? Emergency rooms, they didn't close most of the hospitals, are going to collapse. Hospitals cannot afford to give all this free care now, okay, without the subsidies. Think about that. That emergency room is going to go back to be the primary care for people with no insurance. We talked about this earlier, the big, beautiful wall and to make Mexico pay. Phone lines open. People give us a call. We discussing what's going to happen and how it's going to affect us as a people. This is not just an issue for Republicans or Democrats. It's for everybody. As a people, what's going to affect us. The big, beautiful wall, and Mexico was supposed to pay for this big, beautiful wall.
Right.
Okay. Guess what, Courtney? Mexico ain't paying for nothing. It's already said the taxpayer's going to pay for it. Okay? So I'm going to ask the taxpayers right now. Okay? If you won't pay for police officers, you won't pay for good schools, you won't pay for mental patients to be in mental hospitals, and you won't take care of your veterans, how are you going to afford to pay
For a wall.
billions? We're talking billions. Billions of dollars for a wall. Okay? Now, I do believe he's going to build that wall. But, you know, it's...
Well, you said parts of it, certain areas.
But you know what Courtney's going to get me?
And some other stuff.
The Republicans are going to fight him on that. How you going to be financial responsible and add billions onto the debt? Okay? There's only two presidents that brought the debt down. That was Bill Clinton and Barack Obama, okay?
Right.
Nobody wants to admit it, but Barack Obama received a credit card and the debt was exploding because somebody put 2 wars on there, okay? So you have to understand that. Now, here go the ticket part that really, really just shocked me during the election. The Republican platform is going to end the war on coal. Okay? Now, right here in Cleveland, Ohio, we have 2 coal-burning electrical plants that are being ripped down. Where the coal jobs coming from? Who gonna buy the coal? Nobody using it no more. And it's gonna be too expensive to unmothball the plants that was mothballed. So come on, that's a pipe dream. Now Hillary Clinton said we had to retrain the coal workers. Okay, she made a mistake by saying there was gonna be a lot of them put out of business, but it's true. A lot of them's gonna be put out of business. They need to be retrained. Let's just keep it real, people.
Right.
Okay, keep it real. That's the way it is.
And retrain them for what exactly?
Well, that's the problem right now. We have no factories here. Okay? Donald Trump himself make all his stuff over in China. The steel that he brought for his buildings come from China. Okay? That didn't matter in the election, but it does now. Now I'm going to tell you what he's going to do and how he's going to rebuild the economy. Okay? You know how I'm going to tell you? Because President Obama wanted to do the same thing, but the Republicans had already signed a deal. They wasn't going to work with him, even if it was good for you. But we're going to come to that later on. Now, he's going to do mass deportation of illegal immigrants. He's now going to deport 2 to 3 million people. There's not 2 to 3 million criminals in our jail, okay? The police don't know 2 to 3 million criminals, okay? Don't let them talk about that. That matter of fact, in the election, what's the sheriff name out there in Arizona? I think he's going to be your Homeland Security guy because he got ousted in Arizona if they don't put him in jail for that contempt of court thing. What's his name?
Is that Penzone or is that Arpaio?
Yeah, Sheriff Arpaio.
Right.
He's no longer the sheriff out there. He got thing. That's going to be your next Homeland Security person. Okay.
Maricopa County.
Right. Then he said he's going to scrap the treaty with Iran. Okay. And we're going to do this all over again. But if he scraps the treaty with Iran, they already got the money. They can go right back to making their nuclear thing. And the only way to stop them is what?
A war.
A war. Okay? So he can't scrap the treaty, folks. That was another big smoke screen he did, okay? And how that's going to look to Israel, 2 problems he's going to have with Israel. We're going to keep it real. One, he put Bannon, who is a Jew hater, as his right-hand man. And he's going to renege on scrapping the treaty with Israel. That's going to be some big issues right there, folks, okay? So he's going to remove 2 to 3 million immigrants. And he's going to start his deportation force, and he's going to do that, okay? Because that's the only promise he can actually work on. When he gets into office and he rescinds President Obama's executive orders, that's going to affect millions immediately. Okay, millions. So you have to realize that he doesn't need Congress or the Senate for everything. The Senate right now is 50-50. Okay? For Mitch McConnell to even get on the stage where they have full control of the House, the Senate, and the presidency, Mitch McConnell has to abolish the filibuster. And he can do that on day one when the new election, when the new Congress come into session, okay? But the question is, if he does that when the new Congress come into session, he didn't open up a whole can of worms. The question is, are they really ready to do that nuclear option, Courtney? That's the question. Are they going to do that nuclear option? But that's the only way for the Republicans to take complete control of the government. Mitch McConnell has to push the nuclear button to end the filibuster where the 51 Republicans can control. And then he has to keep control of his own party. Okay? So we have to ask ourselves about that also. The second thing is, Courtney, his promise was that he would immediately on day one, which he's backing back. We already know he was going to back the promises.
Yeah, how far is he going to go with this back and back? Is his supporters going to start, they may end up rising up on him.
He's going to bring jobs back to America. Now, let me tell you how he's going to bring jobs back to America and what's going to happen. He's going to have to pull out his checkbook, and Congress is going to have to get out of his way, and he's going to have to do mass spending on infrastructure. And that's the Democrat platform, folks. Go back and look. Far as Barack Obama, go back to Bill Clinton. Infrastructure, that's all that they was talking about. Rebuilding our roadways, rebuilding the rails, okay? Rebuilding the streets, the bridges. That's going to put mass people to work. And I'm going to say this, mass people. We're going to have jobs galore. But one thing's going to happen. Our debt is going to explode. Okay? It's going to explode. When I say explode, it's going to be like a jar of pennies dropping on a concrete floor. That's why the Republicans wouldn't let Obama do it. Okay? Now, the question is, are they going to do this to keep their word to the unforgotten voters and a solid majority of the middle class workers? Okay? They promised to, day one, cut funding to Planned Parenthood. They promised to cut funding to social programs. And I'm going to stand up for this and tell everybody right here. You may be slapping your hands right now and saying yes, but let me tell you this. There are a lot of elderly people who need the social programs to eat and live. Okay? There's a lot of kids that need the social programs for clothes to eat and live. There's not enough food banks and churches that could help the people out here, okay? There's going to be a lot of homeless families because they barely is making it for food and clothes to pay rent. So when the rent voucher is cut, that's going to affect the community as a whole. To bring it home, look what happened in East St. Louis, East Cleveland, and I can name a pretty bunch of more. Flint, Michigan. Come on, we can go all the way down the line of what's happening right there, okay? We're going to keep it real, Courtney. That's the name of our show, Stop the Madness, Keep It Real. So we're going to keep it real right here, people. A lot of people are going to be hurt, okay? If you're on disability, I know a lot of people on disability saying the state's paying me. Guess what? They can cut down your disability. The state has to retrain you for a job, and you have to take another job, okay? And they can cut your disability payments down. Social Security, they're talking about privatizing Social Security, okay? That's the Republican platform, privatizing Social Security, okay? Your Social Security can be cut. Medicaid, Medicare, they have to privatize Medicaid, Medicare. This is what they're talking about. Nobody asked these questions during the debates, and nobody asked these questions during the election. So guess what? Nobody's going to understand what's happening when it's happening, okay? Because nobody in Washington is going to speak on behalf of the people. Big money, people. Big money.
Follow it.
Okay?
Follow that money.
When they cut these programs,
who's making it offer?
But
Who's
see,
going to profit from it?
This is the problem, Courtney. Everybody thinks that people of color or the poor communities, inner cities is getting all these programs. No. There's more people in suburbs that is working that are getting public assistance. Okay? More people than colored people or people of color is getting public assistance. What you think is going to happen to our economy? Because I'm going to say this right now. If they take all the Mexicans and put them back, and the Latinos, and they take everybody out, who you think in the inner city or in the suburbs is going to get on a truck at 5 o'clock in the morning and go out into a field and pick oranges and tomatoes or apples or cotton or whatever economy product you want to talk about at $5 a basket? Come on, people.
Not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. So that means
there is a way.
No, because
it's a crazy way, but there is a way.
The farm, the owner of the land or the owner of the crop is not going to pay $15, $20. Okay?
True.
He ain't going to pay health care. Okay? They'll figure out how to get a machine to do it before he does it. That's why the migrant workers are here.
Right.
Because nobody wants those jobs.
That's right.
Okay? Donald Trump talking about making America great. And I'm going to tell you this right here, people. He don't even hire American workers at his facilities. Okay? So think about that. He's our president. As I said, he is our president. And I'm going to hold him to everything he said he's going to do for America. I want him to do it. I really do want him to do it. I'm going to even go one better, that everybody thinks that I'm hardcore and that I'm being negative and I shouldn't. I want Donald Trump to be a successful president in the United States. I'm going to do something that they didn't do for the 44th president. I want him to be successful, and I'm going to work to help him be successful, because if Donald Trump is successful, then America will be successful. But guess what? First, I want Donald Trump to enforce and implement all of his policies. And I want it for one reason. So those 46.7% of Americans who sit at home, as Bernie Sanders supporter said, they need to feel the burn before they understand that they have to get out and protect their own interests, and they cannot allow somebody else to do it for them. That's why I want Donald Trump to put his policies in effect. I want him to show America what he's about and how he's doing it. His right-hand man, I didn't talk about him earlier, and I said I wasn't, is Mr. King himself of the KKK and white supremacists. You don't get a second chance when you stand on that porch. You may give him a second chance. I'm not giving him a second chance, okay? My ancestors had too much at stake and paid a hefty price for me to turn my head around and forget my history. You may do it. America can do it, but Sean is not going to do it, okay? But I wish my president, and then you heard me call him my president, okay?
All right.
Be very successful. And I'm going to help him. I'm going to hold him to it, okay? Because everybody needs to understand that at this time, Donald Trump is going into the White House. Donald Trump is going to be sworn in as the 45th president. And Donald Trump is going to cause pain to a lot of Americans. And before America can get over that pain, we have to stand up as one, go into Washington, and make them correct it. Because it's going to happen. We playing a game, people, where guess what? Your star quarterback just got hurt, and we got to bring the college kid in that ain't never took a snap. That's our U.S. Senate. So we're going to get rent all over. Okay? It's going to be the worst 4 quarters ever in the history of mankind. I'm calling it because I'm going to see it. I'm not going to change my tune on that.
2020.
2020. 2020. The DNC, Bernie Sanders supporters, we're going to give you a good guy for the DNC. Okay? So you have no reason to burn down the rest of the house. Help us build it back up. Give us a helping hand so everybody can come back and have a place. Because that's what us Democrats do. Us Democrats care about people. That's our philosophy. We care about rights. We care about people. The thing of it is, Courtney, is maybe we lost our way because we gave our kids too much.
Well, I think the Democrat politicians were taking things for granted.
No.
And been doing so for a long time.
That's correct, because you know why? Money.
Oh, yes.
See, the working people was forgot. Okay? What people don't understand is, and I'm going to say this about trade. NAFTA started under George Herbert Walker Bush. Okay? That law was already done. Okay? I know everybody want to blame Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton was just the president at the time when the law came into effect, and he signed the law. But the bill was already crafted and went through the House and was being debated on and all that before Clinton even got elected. Okay, remember that. And I'm going to say something to my Republican counterparts. Remember this too. The pendulum swings both ways. Okay? If you swing it too far to the right, it's coming back too far to the left. Okay? That's how it works. If you overreach here, at the end, 2020, it's coming back. The difference in 2020 is that America's going to be so mad and so upset that the 46.7% is going to show up on the playing field this time. And you talked about Bernie Sanders' proposals was so far over and so far gone, they may be ripped down your throat. Okay?
But again, what about those electorates?
The electorate, you have to look at this. Okay, the college electorate, and I was going to go back to that, and I'm glad you brought that up because we're going to finish out with the college electorate fields of that. That was established in 1890. And the only reason it was established, okay, it serves no purpose. Okay?
Yeah, but they swung something.
No, it serves no purpose because the southern states in 1890 established the electoral college to give them power. Okay? Because they thought that the slaves was going to be counted and they was going to move up north, and then they would be everything would be forced on them because they wasn't big enough or had the people. Okay?
Right.
So that's why it was established. It was established to counter slavery. Okay, so you look at it yourself, because I'm gonna give you a history lesson because I was in history class a lot. So you don't have to take my word for it. Google it. Go to the library. Pick up a book. Don't let CNN and MSNBC and Fox News tell you. Don't let me tell you. Go to the library. Pick up a book, and you'll see that's how it is. But I kind of like it because if you look at this right here, Courtney, the last 2 Republican presidents were put in office because of it.
That's right.
So they're not going to let that go, okay? They're not going to let that go. And when you take the popular vote, the problem I have with the popular vote is that you got more people in California, okay?
Right.
California is a Democratic state, so that means Democrats is going to carry the day.
Supposed to.
Okay, they're going to carry the day. We should have carried the day in this vote had everybody voted Democrat or came home and looked out for their personal interests, okay? And I said that earlier. And I said about the people in Flint, Michigan. people say that the inner cities have been ran by Democrats for 100 years and they're all deployed and ripped down and going bankrupt. That's true. But you have to remember one thing. The states have been ran by Republican governors.
True.
Okay? And their policies is the reason that the inner cities are like that, because they cut money to the cities to get their budget balanced. So they use cuts to balance budgets so they didn't have to raise taxes, which caused a burden on people in the inner cities or cities. Okay? So everybody suffered because of it. It's just that the inner city suffered more because that's where more of the poor people are at. Okay? And we have to understand that. But you know, Courtney, we sitting here and we're talking down. On this show, Stop the Madness, Keep It 100, we talk about today's issues. We get into heated conversations. The telephone is open. The chat room, it seems that everybody in the chat room really do things right there. We get into the situation. Stop the Madness, Keep It 100.
Here's a funny thing, another one. Back in 2012, Trump tweeted that the Electoral College is a disaster for democracy, and that's one of the reasons that he won.
That's correct. Stop the Madness, Keep It 100. You're on the air. Go ahead, caller.
Hey, I just wanted to say I'm a loyal listener. I love your radio station, and you are speaking the truth. People need to open up a book, make sure that they aren't just using TV and radio to get their news. They need to make sure that they're doing their research themselves. So thank you for spreading the truth.
Thank you very much for calling. Stop the Madness, Keep It 100. Our phone line is open if you wish to call in. And thank you, caller. We try to keep it that way. This is a station that we're going to keep it real. We're going to talk about issues all the way across the board. We're going to talk about justice reform. We're going to talk about social issues. We're going to talk about sports issues. We're going to talk about everything here. We only know one way to keep it, and that's 100. We thank you for tuning in with us and coming along. We're going to take one more break here to go pay some bills before we call it a day. So, Courtney, just sit there, type 1 minute. We'll be right back with you when we go into this break.
A great business needs a stunning website. And with Wix.com, you can do it all by yourself. Wix.com makes it easy to look amazing online, no matter what type of business you're in. Show off your images in a beautiful gallery. Grow your contact list and get all your social media in one place, just the way you want. Your customers are going to love it. So, what are you waiting for? Show the world what you can do. Go to Wix.com and create your stunning website today. It's easy and free.
You've been tuned in to Stop the Madness, Keeping It 100 on STMK Radio 100. And now back to your host one more time, Sean L., Let, and Tone the Stone.
Hey, welcome back with us tonight. This is Sean L. in Studio 51 with Courtney. And we were saying some things there earlier. I want everybody to understand that President Trump can only affect us if we allow it to happen. There's a lot that we can do on a local level, and there's a lot that we can do on the state level. And if you really think that this was a bad thing and you made a mistake and you have buyer's remorse, guess what? We have an election coming in 2018. Trump promised to drain the swamp. Okay? If he doesn't keep that promise, let's do it for him. Every Republican that said that Trump was bad, disgusting, they couldn't back him, what are they doing now? They all falling in line. So they can no longer take the high ground. Okay? We have the high ground. We're going to keep the high ground, and we're going to hold them to it. Somebody said something this week that really stuck in my mind. Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Medgar Edwards, Rosa Parks, all of them stood up and fought till hell froze over. Now that hell is frozen over, it is our responsibility to take the fight and do it on the ice. We cannot give up. We should not give up. And we have to look out for our kids and our elderly, and we have to stand up for our community. And it's time for the inner city to stop waiting for someone to take care of us, someone to take up our fight. It's time for us to get out the club, take off them Jordans. It's time for us to start walking and singing the old Negro spirituals, we shall overcome. And it's time for us to do it ourselves. America, remember this. You must take care of yourself. If you want to do it, you have to do it your own.
Fan base is big, I can't lose. Sugar bow down, I'm the next to rule, but I'ma stay on the cool, remain on the under, cause like Andre 3000, your boy's ice cold. Ain't no limit to the gimmicks and ways to make money. No limit to the just to act funny when you get that cake, cause you spit that way. They may love you tomorrow when they hate you today, but yo, that's the way the story goes, so I was told. Following the ramble down the yellow brick road, but please believe at the end, ain't no pie to go. Just some platinum beats from the Cleveland streets.
You ain't never ever seen a gangster quite like me.
You know I don't give them, and never gave them. I'm just living it up.
No, I hold it down, baby, because I'm certified G.
I'm just living it up. The money can't go with me, so I'm spending it up.
Money ain't a problem, still love and living comfortably.
Never giving it up. I made it all on my own. You ain't getting above.
Shawty got it live with the players from K16.
Yes.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Courtney.
All right, Sean.
It's that time. Remember what everybody say, Courtney. You want to say something to our good people before we get up out of here?
At this time, basically, I want you to stay healthy as possible.
Remember the old saying that I say all the time before I go off the air. Be good. And if you can't be good at it. And my people, don't give up the fight. And the sun will rise in the morning to the east. So call on the Father. I want to say peace, love, and happiness. And until I see you again, have a great night.
Good night.
You've been listening to Stop the Madness, Keep It 100 on STMK Radio 100.
Fan base is big, I